Welcome to the Big 100, everyone. We appreciate you guys tuning in today. This is Blue Collar Sports, but this is no ordinary show we got for you guys today. This is officially our 100th show ever together down here. Started last September, I believe, is when we kicked
over
it
a
off.
year ago.
Over a year ago. And we are at Big 100, so we got a great show for you planned today. Also, happy Valentine's Day. Just turned out that happened on Valentine's Day.
Perfect.
So a day built around love, and we know we love talking sports, and that is what our show is about. I'm your co-host, Seth Newell, joined here with co-host Trevor Brennan. Trevor, how are we doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. I know it's Valentine's Day, so I hope all of you guys love our show, Blue Collar Sports, and you're going to love today's show because it's going to be a great show. We're going to make it the best one ever for you guys, and I'm so excited to get to it. We've been waiting for this one for a long time, ever since our 50th show, I think. But I can't believe it's already here, and it's going to be a great show. I can't wait to get started.
Yeah, so this, like you said, this is a show we've been kind of talking about for a long time, discussing what we should do about it. Obviously, 100's a big number. We're in triple digits now.
Mm-hmm.
And so today's show is going to be a little bit different in the fact that it's going to be more about us. We haven't really talked a whole lot. I mean, I know we obviously give our opinions on sports, but we haven't talked about the specific details, our favorite shows, music, teams, just more about us, and that's what's going to make it really, really cool, really special, and we're excited for it, and it's going to be a great one.
Yeah, and before we get to all the personal stuff, all of that stuff, we have so many fun segments planned ahead for you guys. But first, we're going to kick it off today with our first segment, just surrounding yourself with some big sports news that kind of went over the past couple of days. We covered most on Tuesday, but some other stuff happened since then. And Seth, let's hear what the big news of the day is.
Yeah, lots of big news. Before we get in, like you said, before we get into the stuff we've been planning on, we do want to spend a segment going over the big news. But Joe Flacco, he would say an elite NFL quarterback, has been traded from the Baltimore Ravens to the Denver Broncos. We talked about earlier, I believe last week, about how Nick Foles could be a potential trade target for the Denver Broncos. Right. That's out of consideration. They give a mid, I believe this year's draft, a mid-draft pick.
Third round pick, I believe.
Third round.
Somewhere around there.
Third, fourth, somewhere in there for Joe Flacco, which means the Ravens are all in on Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
And Denver, I like Joe Flacco, but I don't think it's 100% his job yet either. I think Case Keenum could still be in contention, but what is your thoughts about this trade?
Yeah, we start with both thoughts for the Ravens and the Broncos here. Let's start with the Ravens. They're 100% sold on Lamar Jackson now. We saw him take over Joe Flacco's job and secure that job and lead him to the playoffs. And it was definitely surprising to see that happen from my perspective, but they're sold on him. They're committed, so that's good for the Ravens franchise to have that guy that they believe in. And they moved on from Joe Flacco. Joe, he brought them a lot, but it was time to move on. And so they shipped him out to Denver, where they just took in Case Keenum last year. They signed him to a big deal, but he didn't really perform the way they wanted him to. I wasn't surprised from that. And so they bring in a similar player, Joe Flacco, I would say, who I don't think this is their long-term solution. This is short-term, obviously, right now. They got a very nice defense that could carry them far. But if you have a decent quarterback like Joe Flacco right now, I think it will help your offense. So I say that there isn't a starter right now. Case Keenum probably is the starter, but Joe Flacco will come in there. I suspect he will take over that job before the season starts. And he will be their guy for the next 2-3 years, I'd say. Now, between those 3 years, they will try and find a long-term solution, either at quarterback, either this year's draft or next year's draft when it gets a little bit more quarterback depth. So he's their short-term solution right now, I think, in Joe Flacco for the Broncos. I think it's a nice pickup. It's a minor upgrade from Case Keenum, I believe. It's not a huge upgrade, but I do think it is an upgrade from Case Keenum.
Does this move take them out of consideration of drafting a quarterback in this draft? Do you think they're officially off the board, or do you think they could still look to go get someone in the draft and just plan for 2-3 years, letting him develop?
They could absolutely draft a quarterback this draft. They have a very nice draft pick. If they are sold on someone 100% committed, I could see them drafting somebody. Don't know who it could be, but they could bring in somebody. John Elway can mentor him for the next 2 or 3 years under Joe Flacco, and then he'll be the guy after that. So I think that would be the best situation to do. It was kind of like when they had Tim Tebow. They brought in Peyton Manning. Instead of having Tim Tebow being mentored by Peyton, they kind of just shipped him out. So I think they need to take a different strategy here and find a guy they want to long-term, have him be mentored under Joe Flacco, and then he'll be their guy after that.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see how that plays out. Do you see them as a playoff team?
Actually, I could see them as a wild card,
tough division.
possibly. It's a very tough division, obviously, but I think their defense is solid, absolutely. So they got nice pieces. They got to work out some offensive weapons. Philip Lindsay had a phenomenal year last year, so they got a running game. But if it gets some weapons for Joe Flacco, I think it could be a nice team.
It'll be interesting to see. Excited to see that. But that was the big news in the NFL. Move over to the NBA for a second. The Steve Kerr eruption last night. Steve Kerr, probably the most angry I've ever seen him.
Probably.
Lost his mind. It was in Portland. It was an emotional game, a chippy game, that's for sure. Portland, they sure seem to like to play Golden State.
They sure do.
Especially at home. And they proved themselves last night. They played well, and they ended up beating Golden State. But Steve Kerr got ejected in the fourth quarter. I believe it was the fourth quarter.
Yes.
Late in the game. And it wasn't just any ejection. He was all over the place. Kevin Durant actually had to hold him back. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, it's middle of the year. Tempers are kind of flying now. It's starting to get into the All-Star break. They just want a break right now. Steve Kerr absolutely wants a break. He's glad that he's not coaching in the All-Star game. I believe that he needs a little break himself. But the Warriors and Blazers always have kind of that game that they get under their skin, and they kind of go battle back and forth. So I wasn't surprised from this. Portland always plays well. They want to prove themselves that they can play with the big guys like the Warriors. But sometimes it goes back and forth. But this time it was the Blazers who got that. They got under the Warriors' skin.
Well, first of all, I don't blame him for arguing the call. It's one of the worst calls I've ever seen. There was no contact. I mean, think about going back to the early '90s. Compared to where the game is now. That's not even a foul. Yeah. Yet alone they called it a flagrant foul on Draymond Green. If you haven't seen it, check it out.
Yeah, you see Dennis Rodman taking him out, leveling him.
I mean,
totally different.
The bad boys had literally something called the Jordan rules, where Jordan, they'd force him to drive and then basically just knock him over.
Take him out.
And so it's crazy how much the game's changed. And Steve Kerr was obviously on those Bulls teams, so he's seen it both ways. And he was not happy. And I do think we've seen Kerr get ejected before. We've seen him have little outbursts before. I think they're intentional to keep his team with a chip during the regular season, because when you've won, you've been to the last 4 finals. They've won 3 out of the last 4 finals. You have 5 All-Stars. Yeah. It's very, very easy to lose that chip and not care about the regular season. So I think in these type of games, I think some of the things Kerr does, these little outbursts, are intentional. And the fact that he still wants to prove to his team that every game matters, and take a serious approach to it. And I think it's personally a good coaching move.
Yeah, I don't know if it's intentional that he's trying to get taken out of the game, but I think his little outbursts like that, he's trying to pump up Draymond and get those guys going, get their energy back up. Because we all know the Warriors are the best team, but sometimes they get a little lackadaisical and they don't really play as good as they should be. And once they get that energy back, then they step up their game, and then they go under 20-0 run, and they win the game. So Steve Kerr does that on purpose for sure, and he tried to do it there. It just didn't work out until the end of the game against the Blazers.
Now, it wouldn't be a blue-collar sports show if we don't talk about LeBron James and the Lakers and the
for sure
two sides about it. But they lose the Atlanta Hawks, whose 2 of their starters are rookies, and they lose to them 117 to 113 the other night. They are now, I believe, 27-28 or 28-29. They're 1 game under 500 heading into the All-Star weekend. First time LeBron James has had a losing record since his rookie season heading into the All-Star break. And he had some interesting comments about it. They talked to him. He said, the All-Star break will be good for us. My teammates have more time off than I do, referring to the fact that he's played in the All-Star game.
Right.
But as a Laker, I mean, you can see the jersey. You got the Lakers jersey.
I have it on today. It's 23, not 24.
I
did make sure of that.
Jersey, wrong jersey, that's for sure. But it's as a Laker fan, as a LeBron fan, is this a lost season? Are you nervous? You've got to be more nervous than you have in a long time regarding LeBron in this season. But are you nervous about the Lakers?
I'd say I'm a little nervous. Yeah, I am. It's not a lost season. We don't know what it is going to happen yet. We got to see what ends up. If they're going to make the playoffs, so it won't be too much of a lost season.
3 games out.
But yes, I'm a little nervous because obviously their chemistry is not ideal right now. They're not really all together. They had a nice win against the Celtics the other day, which I thought was pretty promising. But since then, they haven't played like that. So I think this All-Star break is going to be a perfect time. Obviously, all the trade rumors that didn't help their chemistry, and so the All-Star break will be a good time for everybody's minds to get back Lonzo, Josh Hart, they're still kind of injured, so they need to come back to get back in the lineup. So it's going to be a great break for them, clear their minds. They'll come back and regroup. We'll see if it's under Luke Walton or somebody else. We don't know about that, but they'll regroup and they'll come back and they'll have a strong push in the second half of the year. They'll get into the playoffs, and LeBron James will definitely keep his winning record alive.
Is Luke Walton the coach of the future for the LA Lakers?
It's very tough because I don't know if Luke's done anything bad. He's in a tough spot, obviously, but I don't know if Luke is the... I would just say I don't think Luke Walton will be coaching the Lakers at the start of next season.
Really?
I don't believe he will be.
Leading candidates to replace him.
I do have two options right here. I've heard Mark Jackson's name. He coached with the Warriors. He's on the broadcast team for ESPN right now. And then Tyronn Lue, actually, who coached with LeBron, who's actually with the Lakers right now as a assistant coach. So I could see one of those two being the future Lakers coach. One is LeBron's guy and Tyronn. Mark Jackson, I think, has done a nice job with the Warriors. Obviously, Steve Kerr took him to another level, but Mark Jackson, I think, is a nice coach who is respectable, and I think players will come there and want to play with them. So those are two names to look out for, but Luke Walton has done nothing bad. He gets to absolutely be the coach next year, but we need to know if Magic and LeBron are sold on Luke.
Yeah, Luke Walton, I don't think it's his fault right now. He's in a tough position of trying to balance these young guys with these veterans.
Right.
Because they have a very interesting combination of a lot of veterans with Rondo, Lance, and of course LeBron and Tyson Chandler. Then you have Lonzo, Ingram, Kuzma, all these young guys. And I don't think it's Luke's fault. It is interesting when we were watching Colin Cowherd's show this morning. He had Nick Wright on there. Nick Wright made a point about he doesn't really know. He's never heard what Luke Walton brings to the table. And I think that's interesting. We've never really heard his philosophies or seen his style of offense. So I'm curious to see. I want to hear a comment from the Lakers about why they believe in Luke, because I don't think they haven't necessarily bailed on Luke, but Magic hasn't been very vocal about being on Luke's side either.
And Magic and Rob Pelinka, they didn't hire Luke. It was the management before they came in there. And obviously, we don't know Luke's system because he was with the Warriors and they went on the big run, and he was already with Steve Kerr's system. So we don't really know what Luke really brings to the table. I think you're absolutely correct in that. And I think he honestly got the job because of the run he went with on the Warriors, and that he's a lifer Laker.
Right.
And he's always been a Laker, so I think he just fit right. He's family to the Lakers, but I think it was a little too soon possibly to be a head coach.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think the Warriors are starting to turn into the Spurs. I mean, you look at how many of Pop's old assistants, and we see it in the NFL too with Belichick and Nick Saban in college.
And now Sean McVay.
Assistants, now Sean McVay, those guys that just know the system. Get jobs really easy, which it makes sense. But I mean, you look at Pop Budenholzer, who's in Milwaukee now having a great year. He was an assistant at Pop. Steve Kerr himself was an assistant for Coach Pop. And I think the Warriors are starting to do the same thing. Luke Walton was the first one. I believe Mike Brown, who has coached in the NBA as a head coach and kind of had a rough start, but he is now the assistant of the Warriors. I do think he'll get a head coaching job somewhere again. So I think they're starting to turn into that spot. But the way the Lakers handle Luke Walton is going to be very interesting.
Yeah, the Lakers, it's not a lost season yet. We'll see what happens.
It's a lost season.
All-Star break will be fantastic for them.
Over.
They'll be good in the second half of this year. They were the 4 seed when LeBron, before he got injured. Then he was out for a little bit. That shows you how much they needed him. That's why he is the most valuable player in the league.
They're like 2-5 with him since he's been back.
He's not fully healthy yet. He's not 100%, all right? He needs this All-Star break. I don't know if I picked him to be MVP. I think I picked Durant in the All-Star game. But LeBron James will only play about 10 minutes in the All-Star game.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect him to play a lot. It'll be interesting to see how they handle that situation. And the Warriors starters as well. But that wraps up segment number 1. That is the news around the sports world. And now, since it's our 100 show, we're about to get a little more personal and make it a little fun for you guys. So stay tuned. We got a great show. The Big 100's here.